You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
All right. Happy Sunday, everybody. Fantastic comments. I can't tell you how I have never covered a case where I get such consistently fantastic comments that make me think and reconsider often my opinions on this case. And I really appreciate it when I ask a question and I get some answers. It just gives me so much to think about. And that's one of the reasons I started a true crime podcast, is I really wanted to have conversations about true crime stories and see where people are sitting and see what they're saying. So today we are going to look at Wendi Adelson's testimony in Katie Magbanua's first trial, as well as Sigfredo Garcia's trial. Katie got a hung jury. Sigfredo Garcia got convicted, got life in prison without the possibility of parole. That is the same sentence that Katie is doing. She got convicted on her second trial. But really, we are looking at the end of Wendi's testimonies. The first time we'd ever seen Wendi testify under oath. And Georgia Kappelman didn't know quite what to expect. And by the second time she started questioning Wendi, she was prepared. She had the documents in hand. So let's look at some of these fantastic comments. And she certainly is a lot like her mother. I mean, let's look at a young Donna again. Don't they look alike? Donna, they're crazy. They're great with the game show with the crazy eyes. Thank you to my friend who sent me that. And he titled it Donna Crazy Eyes. So funny. So starting with Mark Level 6056, that tilting of the head, so weird, reminds me of the fembots, female robots in the $6 Million Man or Austin Powers. And AA Legal Focus, hey Judy, such a fan of hers. She thinks it makes her look so charming, she wrote. So very weird with the head tilting. And of course, you're told when you're getting your picture taken to tilt your head, that it makes you look more attractive. It seems like she's very aware of the cameras, very aware of her image. Absolutely. Mike Long says, 3030, Roberta, Wendi is a carbon copy of Jodi Arias on the stand at trial. Neither of them would answer the slightest question without hedging, ducking, and fudging, even when they didn't need to. All right, I have pulled up a bit of Jodi Arias. So as soon as we get into Wendi, we can switch over and just take a look. Actually, let's take a look. We all know what Wendi's like on the stand, no? Let's just take a quick look at Jodi Arias, shall we? What she's like on the stand and see if it's similar. We can even switch back and forth if we need to. Certainly the stillness already. Doesn't it look like she's frozen there? But that's actually, she's not, because someone's moving in front of her.
Please be seated. The record will show the presence of the jury, the defendant, and all counsel. Ms. Arias, you are still under oath. Do you understand?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez, you may cross-examine the witness.
Ma'am, take a look at Exhibit 413. You recognize that exhibit, correct?
Yes.
And that's a picture of you, correct? Right
Yes.
here. And the other one is a picture of your dumb sister, Angela, correct?
That's my sister. She's not dumb.
Well, do you remember having a conversation with Travis Alexander back on May 10th of 2008?
Yes.
And do you remember that you tape recorded that conversation?
Yes.
And during that conversation, isn't it true that you said, but I honestly think, talking about Angela, she's a little bit dumb. You said that, right?
Yes, I called her dumb and stupid.
Did I ask you whether or not you called her stupid, ma'am?
No.
I asked you whether or not you called her dumb, right?
Yes.
Ma'am, take a look at Exhibit 452. Do you recognize the two people there?
Yes.
And this photograph was taken by your camera, correct?
It looks like it.
Wow, it is very similar. No, that's what I'm seeing. Very similar. Let's just get into Wendi really quickly. Sorry about the comment still being up there for a second.
Is that right? I think she has fiduciary responsibility over the trust.
Okay, so let's go back a little bit.
Proceed, Your Honor. Okay. Do you know if Detective Isom ever tried to reach out to your parents?
I don't think he did.
Do you know if Detective Isom ever tried to speak to your brother Charlie?
I don't think he did.
Now, you are testifying today under a state subpoena, correct?
Correct.
And that state subpoena gives you immunity for your testimony, right?
Yes.
Can you explain to the jury, since you're an attorney, what immunity is?
Immunity is freedom from prosecution.
So that means that anything you say today can't be used against you if the state decides to arrest you later on.
The state isn't going to decide to arrest me.
Do you know if they consider you a suspect?
I don't know.
Wow. Wow, wow, and more wow. Yeah, great comment. Very similar. Very similar affect, for sure. Wow. I wasn't expecting that. I kept it for a surprise and it ended up being worth it. Shui Frangazlas, Franglazes 7900 says, I hate this woman as much as you do. As you say, after first her brother, then her mother are convicted, which she will be. I believe that too. Donna will be convicted. How on earth could any lawyer make a convincing argument in her defense? Are the jury supposed to believe it was some sort of a surprise birthday gift for Wendi with the family all discussing it like one does with more normal presents, quote unquote? Oh, I'm sure she'll love it. She likes surprises. I know this is what she wants, but she would never be so bold as to ask. Just watch her face when she sees what we've done for her. I don't think so. Not any person would believe that she did not know about it, and there's other evidence to convict her. Yeah. Shui, Franglaise. Yeah, I agree with you. Absolutely. A lot of people were commenting that Donna, will not live to see her trial, that jail conditions will be too hard on her, too difficult, and that she won't make it. I think she's tougher than people think she is. I think she's a very tough, maybe that's the biggest part of her callousness, her toughness. And I can't imagine her going down before trial unless she does her other option, which was, so she thought she would either end her life or flee to Vietnam. And of course, she bought a ticket to Vietnam, one-way ticket with Harvey, where she was caught at the Miami airport, flying to Dubai. And then her plan was to go from Dubai to Vietnam. I think that she might go that way. And since she floated it out on a recorded phone call to Charlie, and maybe the other option is she wanted the authorities to think that she was going to take that option. But it seems very similar to the story Mrs. Madoff used to tell about how she and her husband would, after the scandal broke, considered doing it, and they took a lot of pills, and then they just woke up groggy the next morning and were so glad that it didn't have the effect that they wanted. I can see her doing something like that, but should she choose to do something like that or even attempt it, it's going to make life very unpleasant for her. As I said, when you're on this kind of watch, if you've already threatened to end your own life, you're in a Ferguson gown. We saw her in the Ferguson gown at her bond hearing. And you wear nothing under it. You get no toilet paper in your cell. And we know that this is a family of weak stomachs. So I think that would be very hard, even if it's just a matter of having to ask for TP. Boy, I don't envy her conditions, but I do feel they are appropriate. So I will continue to say that this has been done in a very orderly fashion. So what I mean by that is Georgia Kappelman started with the shooters, and the middle woman, once they were all convicted, she indicted Charlie, arrested Charlie. Then she convicted Charlie, which was a challenge. He had a really good legal team and a lot of money to burn on his defense. And the state just crushed Rashbaum, Team Charlie Adelson. Crushed him. And I thought he did as good a job as you can with that ridiculous defense. He reminded me in court very much like Keith Raniere, the guru of the Nexium cult, whose hearings and trials I attended. He was very much in control of his defense, just like Charlie was. And he would hand post-it note after post-it note to his defense lawyer, Mark Agnofello. So much so that he just felt defeated and resentful, just like we saw Rashbaum do at the end of the trial. He was like, enough. You got to stop it. That's what he told Charlie on a hot mic. So let's get into Wendi. And then after we finish this testimony, we're going to look at Wendy's drive-by, or how she didn't drive by, according to her, the crime scene. She just accidentally got there. So we're going to look at how she accidentally got there. The terrific video done by the Ghibercz with a G YouTube account. Link is always in the description of the episode. If I don't have it up at the time of the live stream, it will be up shortly after. So we're just finishing up her testimony. Boy, is it a lot like Jodi Arias. Wow. Wow, wow, wow.
Now, the life insurance policy that the state was asking you about, have you received any money from the life insurance policy from Mr. Markel?
I don't know if maybe in the beginning, the life insurance that Danny owed me about $100,000 when he died. I do think that his family made that disbursement. I don't know if they paid that through the life insurance policy, but other than that, there's been, the life insurance policy is money put away for the kids. I've never seen it.
Are you?
So this is something she loves to bring up. She loves to disparage Dan Markel. He didn't pay me the $100,000 for the house that was in the divorce settlement. But the reason he didn't pay her is because she held on to a piece of jewelry that was from his relative who died in the Holocaust. Huge sentimental value. So cruel to do that. Not just greedy, but cruel. And the second thing was that she hid her income. When she had to disclose all her income, she hid a big chunk of it. So he was looking to censure her legal license. He was also looking to have Donna only be allowed to visit with the children with a supervisor. Two things that would have been hugely humiliating to both of them. And not to mention, how is Wendi going to survive, besides marrying some rich husband, without a means of making a living? I mean, I can't see Wendi working at Starbucks. Can you?
Do you have access to that, or you have no control over that?
I have no control over that.
All right. All right, and I have, where did you say, so your boys are now down in Miami with your mother, correct?
At the moment, yes.
Okay. And you stopped letting Danny's parent or Mr. Markel's parents see the boys, is that correct?
2 years after Danny died, I stopped visitation.
Okay, do you have any intention of letting them see their grandchildren again?
I do. We've actually been in discussion the last few weeks.
So she did this just so she could say on the stand that she was in discussion with Ruth Markel. You can listen to my interview with Ruth Markel. It's on this channel. I have a playlist. I believe it's called Murder of Dan Markel or Dan Markel Murder. And you can listen to my interview with Ruth Markel and about her experience dealing with the tragic murder of her son and the amazing resilience that she has. So yeah, what I remember her saying in that interview is that, yeah, she made contact with me right before the trial so she could testify and look like a half human person.
No further questions, Judge.
Redirect.
In the last 5 years. Parents been able to see your boys in the last 5 years.
In the last 2 years after they died, they've been able to see them every time they've asked to see them.
Okay, what about the last 3 years?
Since 2016, they have not been permitted to see the boys.
They have not been permitted
That's right.
by you,
By me, yes.
right? And that's not through lack of trying on their part.
No, that's because of what they did.
Okay, but they want to see those boys, don't
They
they?
very much want to see the boys.
All right. And Dan Markel's sister is the, I'm not sure if this is the right word, but the executor of that trust for the boys. Is that right?
I think she has fiduciary responsibility over the trust for the
All
boys.
right, thank you. That sounds right. Did you at one time hold that position in Dan's will?
Oh, before we got divorced, I probably did.
Okay, but sometime after the divorce, he changed that over to the sister.
He must have, yes.
Okay. And did you initiate proceedings to try to fight that decision that he made to make the sister the executor or the beneficiary, have the fiduciary duty for this money over you, through the disbursement to your children?
Can you repeat can you
Okay,
rephrase the
so
question? for
did
me?
you initiate any type of proceeding at any point to try to contest or fight Dan Markel's sister being appointed as this fiduciary for the life insurance for the boys?
I don't believe that I did.
You did not.
I don't remember doing that, no.
No further questions.
All right, any juror have a question of this question? If you do, write it down. We'll go sidebar.
So Georgia Kappelman bringing up that probably Wendi most likely fought for control over the trust that Dan left for the children. See, when things are don't make you look good on the stand, often lawyers will advise their clients to say they don't remember, because of course you can't be prosecuted for having a bad memory. But Wendi here is going to say, oh no, because she just, like Jeff Lacoste said, she just comes out with these things with such ease, and she doesn't think how it can bite her in the butt. Like, for one thing, she said in one trial that she wasn't on these dating sites, and Georgia Kappelman had to remind her that we have your phone, Wendi. We have your phone. You can't lie on this. So once again, Georgia Kappelman is bringing up for the jury that Wendi is a mother who puts her own resentments before her children's well-being. So, for example, like, what I'm trying to say is that the children, of course, would benefit and get great comfort from being with their paternal grandparents. I know after my dad died, when I was 20, quite a difference in age than these children who are very young. I think they're like 12 and 13, around that age now. Let me know in the comments exactly. I believe she said exactly how old they are in Charlie's trial. But it would be a great comfort and a real gift to them to learn about their father from their grandparents. And instead, it's more important to her to hold on to her resentment, because it's never been about what Ruth Markel did, which was set up an emergency plan for the children should something happen to Wendi, like she'd been arrested. They would go into foster care until Ruth Markel could come from Toronto to Florida and get them, which would be immediately. And that was Wendi's excuse to cut off all contact, because this has never been just about getting the kids to Miami or murdering Dan Markel. It's about eradicating Dan Markel off the earth, his memory, his spirit. They want nothing left of him. Not his name. She changed the kid's last name. He must be forgotten. And I believe this kind of adversarial challenge, because I believe that this is a family obsessed with winning, with making suckers out of people, getting their way, their status, power and control totally. And so Wendi has the kids and the grandparents. She knows they want to see their grandchildren desperately. She enjoys their suffering because, of course, they are part of Danny. Does that make sense? Hope so. Let's see if the jurors have any questions. That's a really good profile of her nose, which is so straight that it makes me think that she had some help straightening her nose. The big nostrils that you get when you straighten your nose. I don't know why that is, but what a profile. She's a pretty woman. Too bad she doesn't have the soul or the spirit to go with it.
Ms. Adelson, I don't remember what it related to exactly. I mean, I remember you saying this, and one of the jurors had a question about, you said your memory had been refreshed about something. What did you mean by that?
So over 5 years have passed since Danny died. And I'm
Speak to them.
sorry. So more than 5 years have passed since Danny died. And a lot of the things that we're talking about today.
So what she was asked about, what she said she refreshed her memory on, if my memory is correct, was that she didn't remember all the mean words that her mother used to describe Dan, stupid, his nickname, lots of swear words, but she refreshed her memory. That is my memory of it. Let me know what yours is, if it's something different. That's what I thought the question was, that she said she had forgotten and she refreshed her memory with a record.
I just don't remember at all. And so to refresh my memory, to make sure that I could remember things, certain documents were shown to me, emails, legal pleadings from the case, so that I could remember what was happening at that time.
One of the jurors was a little confused with the timing. You had said you had a boyfriend and that it was not clear to them whether you said it was a month after your separation and filing for divorce or a month after it was finalized.
Sure. So I started dating someone who was a friend of mine for many years, and it didn't become romantic until after I had filed for divorce. So about a month after I filed for divorce, someone who was a friend in my life became more like a boyfriend than a friend.
Okay. What was wrong with the television that had to be repaired?
So, of course, this is the television that Jeffrey Lacasse says that Wendi motioned him over to come look at, and he felt that something heavy had been taken to the screen, and he felt that it was something too heavy that the boys couldn't have done it at their age, and he felt that Wendi intentionally broke this TV. And that night, the boys he had rented, Jeff Lacasse, had rented a DVD from a Red Box. Remember, this is 2014, to have movie night with the boys. That was their present. Something About a Dragon, Part 2. And Wendi insisted that they watch the movie on the broken TV, and the kids were whining and complaining because they could barely see the picture. And he kept saying, let me just set up the DVD player in the other room, and she wouldn't let him. He offered to buy her a new TV or get it repaired often. So remember, this happened right before June, before the Hitmans, and then it stayed broken all the way through July 18th, the day of 2014, the day of Dan Markel's murder.
I think one of my kids might have thrown something at it, so there was a crack in the TV.
And why have Mr. Markel's parents not been allowed to see the grandchildren?
Well, they were allowed to see the grandchildren for 2 full years. And I used to cook meals for them and arrange play dates. We had sleepovers. And then I found out that, that Ruth Markel had reached out to a foster care agency to try to place my children with that agency. And I became very worried that they were trying to take my children away from me.
But she knows that's not true. She would know that was not true as a lawyer. She would understand as an immigration lawyer. She would understand exactly what those documents meant. And it was the perfect excuse to cut them off. It's just awful to watch her look in the jury's eyes and lie for so many reasons. For one, she's a lawyer, and it's her duty to uphold the law and act in a manner becoming to a lawyer. And secondly, it's so awful because it's just so morally repulsive what she did and her lying about it both.
And so after that time, I didn't feel a level of trust that they could spend time with the kids. I was afraid they were trying to take them from me.
Okay. Follow up, Ms. Captain.
Your reference.
Boy, is that a challenging look. Boy, it makes me think of Joan Crawford. Actually, it really makes me think of the movie version of Joan Crawford, the exaggerated version. At Pepsi Cola after her husband dies in the black fur hat.
To the foster care agency, does that have to do with an email that was sent to me from your mother-in-law?
Yes, it does.
All right, that Dan's mother.
Yes.
And that email was in reference to, in the event that you and your parents were arrested in association with this crime, could I please contact that particular agency to assist with the children in the event they have no guardian temporarily until they could get down here from where they reside in Canada? Is that correct?
That's correct.
I mean, this really reminds me of Dear Zachary, one of my favorite true crime documentaries about Andrew Bagby's murder. And the parents had to hang out with their son's murderer. This is pretty much similar with the Markells. Here they are, evolved emotionally enough after this to hang out, hang out with Wendi, just to spend some time with their grandkids. What a nightmare. It's amazing that they could conduct themselves with such class. They're just such a classy, soulful family.
Correct.
Okay, so they were not trying to take your children unless there was an event where you were unable to care for them.
But because there's no event in which I would be unable to care for them, that feels like trying to take away my children.
Thank you.
Because I'm never going to be arrested or convicted in this conspiracy plot, crime, murder of my ex-husband, of which I benefit the most, it felt like they were trying to take away my kids, because that event will never happen. I wonder if she thinks that if she says this enough, if she fronts enough about this. And many very interesting comments about Tim Jansen, who's a lawyer who talks a lot about this case online and insists, argues with all of his heart and soul that Wendi will never be indicted. The state doesn't have enough evidence. Some true crime observers have said that they believe that Jansen is working for Wendi as a kind of PR. Certainly that wouldn't be unusual in true crime cases. Many defendants, many convicted murderers have PR agents. But it's hard to tell with a lawyer. They can argue both sides of anything if he really believes it. Because it seems to me that it would look awfully odd if everyone goes down but Wendi, but the person that benefited the most. How's that going to play with the local Tallahassee crowd? I can't imagine. And also, we don't know what evidence they might be holding back for the event of Wendy's trial. It just seems like they're doing this very slowly and methodically with a lot of input from the Markells. I can't imagine Georgia Kappelman telling them, oh, we have no plans to ever prosecute Wendi. And Georgia Kappelman said after Charlie's conviction, this is an ongoing investigation. So what would they need to keep looking into? Donna? Only Donna? Doesn't seem logical. Would have to be Wendi and Donna and maybe Harvey. I can't imagine Harvey getting indicted for this. That's something that I might agree with Tim Jansen on. I can't see that happening. I haven't seen any evidence. And common sense, unfortunately, isn't enough.
Garcia.
No follow-up question.
Magbanua.
And this email about there being possible arrests of you and your family, that came right after Catherine Magbanua was arrested, right?
I don't remember exactly the timeline of that.
Okay, thank you.
Further, Ms. Captain? No, right, you can step down. Do we need to keep this witness any further? Anybody need her any further?
Okay, so that is Wendi Adelson's testimony in Katie's trial, first trial, Katie Magbanua and Sigfredo Garcia's first trial. I'm going to take a quick break. When we get back from the break, we are going to look at Wendy's route to the crime scene. Her accidental, totally accidental. Guys, she just has a bad sense of direction. When we return, stay tuned. I'll meet you on the other side of the break. If you are enjoying this episode of my True Crime Report, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share this episode. Get access to exclusive podcasts and other bonus content by becoming a patron today. If you have a question or comment for me, shoot me a super chat and I'll do my best to answer it and read it on air. Thanks so much. Now back to the show. Very exciting news. I hit over 1 million views on YouTube this week. So I will be having a hangout stream, maybe even after this episode, to celebrate. Thank you so much for making that happen to everyone who has listened to any episode of mine. I really appreciate it. I am also coming on 10K subscribers. I think last time I checked, I was at 9,850. So for all those who've thought about subscribing, it would really mean a lot to me if you subscribe to this channel and if I could hit my goal of 10K subscribers. So this is an episode by Ghibercz, JHIBERCZ channel. Did an excellent video, and the first part of it is silent. So I'm going to be reading it for my lovely audience who's listening on podcast, but really gives you such a good sense of what Wendi could see, how far out of her way she had to go, and how our story is patently ridiculous. So patently ridiculous. So let's take a listen. So it starts out, it says, Wendi Adelson lies under oath about the crime, driving by the crime scene. This video will show Wendi changed her story about her route. On the day of Dan Markel's murder, she lied under oath multiple times. And number 3, She made contradictory statements under oath that constitute perjury. The crime scene tape was so close to Markel's home that there's no way the mom of kids who was there that morning would encounter it and not worry. So we know that the realtor, who was working with Wendi, saw the crime scene tape and called her. You don't see crime scene tape when a power line is down or a tree is down. So it worried Wendi's realtor, but not Wendi? Unless they already knew what had happened. Correct. The geography of Trescott Drive, the crime scene roadblock, Wendi's route on Dan's murder date, how Wendi lied under oath. So starting with the map of Trescott on a normal day. So you can see the location of Dan's house in the distance. Excuse me. This is the direction Wendi was driving on July 14, 2018, around 12:35 p.m. Next door neighbor's mailbox. So we know the next door neighbor heard the gunshots and was a real hero and ran over and called 911 immediately while Dan Markel was still clinging on to life. So we can see that the next door neighbor's mailbox and the crime scene tape is right in front of Dan's driveway. And Wendi drove right up to the crime scene tape. And being a lawyer and being a human being living on planet Earth, not Mars, she would know what crime scene tape is. And Detective Craig Islam is there. Excuse me if I'm pronouncing his name wrong. But he's the one who interrogated or interviewed Wendi after Dan's murder. So after Dan's murder, he checked the house to make sure that there was no one in the house. He heard that the children were in school and that the mother was out at a restaurant. He went and got her. They drove back to the police station, and that's where the interview began. So the light post next to Dan's mailbox, it all goes right in front of Dan Markel's property. It could be no one else. The crime scene tape was connected to the electric pole right next to Dan's mailbox. Crime scene tape that Wendi drove up to. Not many houses down at his actual house. So Wendi said she couldn't see much. She was far away. But what this video argues is that she got right up to the edge of the crime scene, and that there were a great many people there involved in investigating. And she couldn't miss it. She couldn't miss what this was. It's like saying, I saw something in the litter box and it looked like an animal, but I couldn't be sure it was my cat. She would be that familiar with this location. She was that close. There's just no way that she got there by accident or that she didn't know that it was something terribly wrong. So 23 different first responders were there between 11:56 and 1 p.m. Officers, EMS, fire, forensic vans. So police cars are all over the house where her children still live half the time, where she used to live, the home of her ex-husband. Officer Brannon, this is his testimony. He testified that there was no roadblock on Centerville Road, no indicators of a crime scene from Centerville Road, which was less than a mile away. The two roadblocks spanned only a few houses surrounding the Markells' home. The police tape was only at the roadblock. The crime scene was active and in no way resembled a downed tree. Wendy's vehicle drove up to the crime scene tape, turned abruptly, and left. Wendi didn't stop to ask what happened, despite other drivers doing so. Could that be considered? I think that would be a strong point in court. Call me crazy. So what I'm trying to argue, I don't know how successfully, but my position is that this may be a longer trial for Wendi. You may have to have more witnesses because small things like Wendi not asking what happened become hugely important in a murder for hire case where the point is that you don't get your hands dirty, that there isn't a lot of evidence to convict you. That is the point of doing a murder for hire conspiracy. So, and I believe Tim Jansen knows that. What Wendi says happened or didn't happen, or did and didn't happen. The following Wendi statements go in sequential order, including on the day of the murder, to her defense deposition, to each of the 3 trials that she was compelled to testify in, and of which, of course, she got limited immunity for, meaning that they can't use any of the things she said on the stand against her, or they can't use it as a point to investigate. So this is her day of the murder.
I was going to take a shower, but I didn't. I ran out of time. I did laundry, and then I left the house around noon.
To go to the liquor store and the stuff for the party?
Yeah.
Okay, you went down which road you said?
I went down Trescott. Okay. I saw a police car there, and I just thought it was blocked, so I just turned around and drove to, I went down the rest of Centerville, went up Benton, took Benton across, went to ABC Liquors, bought the bourbon.
I'm a little confused. You're up on Centerville Road. What's your purpose of driving down Trescott?
It's usually the shortcut to get to Monroe.
To get to Monroe?
I usually take it as a cut through to get to Thomasville or Monroe.
Okay.
So Wendi, of course, that's the part that always stuck out to me. This is the first moment when the officer shows some skepticism in Wendi's story. And that's when she really starts selling it. I didn't even think like that's the house.
All right. So you're at your house with the repairman. He leaves. You go back to working on your papers. And then you leave your house around noon, drive down, Trescott's blocked. You turn around, you go back around on Benton, and then you go
There's a tree.
Right. Pardon?
I thought it was like a tree that fell down or something.
Right. So
she's trying to recreate the uneven breaths with her shoulders. She's moving her shoulders up and down, and she's starting to get the high, cry voice, but she can still talk at full volume with even a lot of power behind it. So singers know all about this, that when you're crying, you can't support your voice because your voice is supported by your breath, which is why singers like Frank Sinatra work so much on breath control.
I didn't even think like that's the house.
I didn't even think that's like the house. What did she think it was? The tape went right to his, right over his
I
mailbox.
was driving up the street and I saw like the tape and I just thought, oh, maybe there's like an electrical outage or something. Like I saw the street blocked. I was driving into town. I was running errands. I was meeting some friends for lunch and I drove up Trescott because it's the shortcut. And so I drive up Trescott and I see the tape and I was like, I guess there was like an electrical outage because sometimes we'd have trees that would fall or whatever. And so I turned around and didn't think anything of it. I was at lunch with 2 friends and the officer shows up.
So you can see her now. She's selling her story to her friends and the victim's advocate. It's like she's putting on a performance for them. So she knew she really had to sell it to the police officer, and she knows she's going to have to equally sell it, if not more so, to her friends. So she keeps doing these loud sniffs in between her sentences. Like she's still very upset. Wendy's still very upset. Right? You get like what she's trying to do? She's trying to recreate the crime, but it's not real crime because she can talk fully with full breath. She fooled some people, though.
I've been here since then.
And this is from her deposition with Katie Magbanua. Her lawyer filed a motion to quash the subpoena, so she fought testifying, which is a good advice by Wendy's lawyer, because you want to remain as silent as you can, because any little mess up with your story, any slight change in story, any struggling with the questions can really hurt her. And we saw with Donna, she created one of the biggest pieces of evidence against her, if not the best piece of evidence against her, arguably, which is her fleeing to Vietnam. Her phone calls with Charlie saying, I'm getting things in order. Why would she need to do that? She's supposed to be, why would she leave her child, her one child, going probably in jail, going off to prison, being moved to prison? That's Charlie. Her other child, Robert, she's is estranged from the family, because Donna meddled in his dating life and disapproved of his very ethnic girlfriend because she wasn't Jewish. And my theory on that is it's not so much that the love of Rob Adelson's life wasn't Jewish. It's that she wasn't waspy looking. She wouldn't look good on the Hanukkah cards, holiday cards. It wasn't the statusy look enough for the Adelson family. And of course, the woman that Charlie had a child with was white, even though he dated all sorts of ethnic types. Just interesting to note. So I think that this is a family that doesn't care so much about Judaism as status and looks. So nevertheless, Wendi was allowed to assert her Fifth Amendment right to silence. This is her deposition. So what a deposition is it's like testimony in court. You're under oath. Oh, sorry, hold on. A little ahead of myself here. So it holds the same power as testimony in court, but it's usually done in a lawyer's office, often videotaped. And you can check out depositions online. every depositions that's related to Andrew Cuomo's case, or many of them, including his own, are on YouTube. So for people who are interested. So she asserted her Fifth Amendment right. Let me see. Let me go back. Over 300 times. Including about this, which is, do you remember explaining all of your whereabouts to Detective Isom on the day the homicide took place? Wendi, I assert. So it's in depositions like that, sometimes they have, I believe, 7.5 hours, something like that, 7 hours, 7.5 hours of time on the record to ask questions of Wendi. So they can go on from 9 in the morning to 9 at night, depending on how many breaks they take. And if the witness is saying, I assert my Fifth Amendment privilege, it gets very long and dragged out. I'm not, let me know which is correct. But yeah, it becomes very long. Wow, what a thing. The state of Florida versus Sigfredo Garcia. This is her.
Okay. And did you make any stops between leaving your residence and going to the liquor store?
Maybe I purchased gas?
I don't know if you did or not, but I'm referring to your visit to the crime scene.
I did not visit the crime scene.
Okay. You did not pull up to the crime scene tape on Truscott Drive?
No. I was driving on Centerville Road, and sometimes I would take the shortcut through Truscott.
Yes, ma'am.
But when I was driving on Centerville Road, I saw some sort of tape or obstruction, and so I didn't turn.
Okay.
I saw some sort of tape. It was yellow and it had some words on it, like maybe it started with a C. Maybe it was chime scene, lime scene, maybe. I'm not, I couldn't be sure.
And then
this is in Katie's second trial. No, didn't go by the crime scene, but also I did.
And then went and ran your errands? On the way to run your errands, did you go by the crime scene?
No.
On the way to run your errands, did you encounter a roadblock on Truscott?
I did.
All right, so you did turn off of Centerville onto Truscott.
I did.
All right, and when you encountered a roadblock, what did you assume the problem was there?
I figured it was just an electrical storm or something. There was some tape, and it looked like the road was blocked off. And so I just turned around and went back and went up Benton.
And had there been an electrical storm that morning?
I didn't remember an electrical storm, but in the summertime, there's always trees falling and rainstorms. So
I went.
Sure. Okay. And did you go to the crime scene or very near the crime scene on your way from your...
So here she tried to turn on, but saw it was blocked. So story changes slightly.
Residence to, I guess, to lunch or to wherever you were going next?
No, I did not.
So you never turned on Truscott Drive that day?
I went to turn on Truscott Drive, but I saw that it had been blocked off by some tape. And so I just kept driving on Centerville.
Okay. And when you had to turn around at the tape, right, to go back out?
I think I tried to turn right and it couldn't turn. So I would have made like the kind of turn, like a K turn, and kept going.
Was there a roadblock there with?
There was tape.
Yeah. And an officer was there?
I didn't see an officer, but I did see a car.
A law enforcement marked vehicle? Okay. Did you have any contact with the officer?
No.
Okay.
Did you do anything after that to try to find out what was going on down that roadway?
No, I just assumed it was weather or maybe a tree fell.
The actual facts. Facts, there was no downed tree. There hadn't even been rain in the many days before July 18th, 2014. And Trescott is not a shortcut. Trescott, it's a winding road with tons of speed bumps and speed limits far lower than Centerville and Bakerville. So here's a map and all those speed bumps, at least 8 speed bumps. You have to go 20 miles an hour. Speed limit is lower. Great points. It's a great video. Nicely done. Everyone who lives in the Benton neighborhood knows this. And there are 2 liquor stores right next to Wendy's lunch destination. So if the way I've always picked up anything that I've asked to bring to a party, I always do it right on my way. I don't know if it's different if you have to drive, but it seems odd. It always seems odd to me. And no, this is not a point to argue in court. It's just an odd thing to notice, which is that it's just odd that she's doing it so many hours before this Stock the Bar party. Chris Corbett validates Wendy's route was suspicious and took her way out of her way while already running late. This is at Charlie Adelson's trial, November, that's this month, 2023. This is the testimony of Sergeant Chris Corbett under direct. And Sarah Dugan is doing the examination.
All right, switching gears here. I want to see where Wendi Adelson was during that late morning, early afternoon time when Markel was murdered and during the couple hours after. Are you familiar with her statement about her locations on July 18th as far as being at home for her TB repair appointment, then going to ABC Liquors to buy a gift, and then going to lunch at Mosaic?
Yes, I am.
All right, based on her call detail records, were you able to determine what time she would have gone by the Trescott Drive area?
Yes, we do know the location of her residence at the time here on Aqua Ridge Way. We do know that she was going to the ABC. This was located on Thomasville Road.
And of course, she has that receipt. She kept that receipt, right?
Looking at her records, she has a rather lengthy voice call, begins at 12:31 p.m. We see that's on a cell site that would be consistent with the general area of her residence. We see at 12:35 p.m., kind of in the middle of the screen here, her handset's now kind of halfway between there. And then that call ends at 12:47 p.m. and it ends on a cell site here very close to ABC liquor store. So looking at that, again, the receipt time, 12:49, the call ending time, 12:47, we can kind of approximate that she would have been by the Trescott residence, at 10 or so minutes earlier than that.
Okay, are you familiar with Officer Brandon's statements that he saw a person in a red van that matched the description of Wendi Adelson's vehicle at the roadblock at Trescott Drive that day in the 12 to 1 o'clock hour?
Yes.
All right. About what time would she have been in the area of Trescott Drive when she's on her way from home to ABC?
Well, again, I would say sometime between 12:35 and 12:47 or 12:49 for sure at the absolute, because she would have been in the store at that point for the transaction. So sometime in that 12:40 timeframe.
Okay. Now, did Dan Markel have he and Wendi Adelson's children the morning of July 18th?
He did, yes.
All right. And he had taken them to school that morning, right?
Yes.
All right. Looking at her cell bright, were you able to see her calls that morning after she would have passed this Trescott Drive area?
Yes.
All right. After driving by that street, the road being blocked, the crime scene tape, and police cars, did she attempt to contact Dan Markell to make sure he was okay or the kids were okay?
Here, we've kind of highlighted the calls that were made after that time, starting at 12:47, and we can see that they're to a variety of people. None of them were Mr. Markell.
Did she attempt to contact Creative Preschool to make sure the kids made it to school? There wasn't some type of incident at the house.
She did not.
Did she attempt to call 911 or law enforcement to check and see what was going on since her kids were staying on that street?
She did not.
She just continued on to ABC and then up to Mosaic?
Correct.
Now, are you familiar with the area at Thomasville Road and I-10 where Mosaic was located back in 2014 when it was around?
Yes,
Were there any liquor stores in that area back in July of 2014?
there were, yes.
Okay, which ones?
So we have the Publix liquor store. They're off of Thomasville Road, Market Square Liquors, Market Square Shopping Center, and there is another ABC location a little further north on Thomasville Road.
What route could she have taken to one of those three liquor stores?
Of many, one of the routes is the one depicted here by the red dashed lines, which would have taken her up Centerville Road and then over to Thomasville and down to Mosaic.
What route did she actually take to go to the ABC liquor down on Thomasville and then to Mosaic?
We can see here her path would have been the purple line and the shortest distance again being the red dotted line.
Now I know, obviously that looks like the shortest distance, but how much shorter are we talking about?
So we can only, our mapping, our GIS software is able to provide approximate travel times and distances, kind of like Google Maps. And so what we can see is that the miles for the shortest route would have been 3.63, and they estimate travel time at about 11 minutes. The other travel was almost 9.5 miles, which they estimate travel at a little over 20 minutes.
So why lie? That's the question. Why lie? Why lie when you don't have to? To say I have a terrible sense of direction. I accidentally ended up there. I have to go to that liquor store when there's two liquor stores right next to a place that I believe she went to lunch before with her friends. She knows. It's a very kind of homey college town, Tallahassee, from what I understand. She wouldn't know that? Miss Brainiac? This head of her class? Honor student? These narrative changed based on what she needed to do at the time. It seems she impulsively drove to Trescott to check on the crime scene. She knew what the scheduled TV repair appointment meant was going to happen. Dan's murder, her problem being fixed, but she couldn't say that to Detective Ism. So she used reverse psychology to give herself an alibi. For example, if I did this murder, I'd never drive by the crime scene or admit it to the cops. If I say I drove there, they'll think I'm innocent. Just like if I say that I told the TV repairman this horrible joke this morning about my brother buying me his joke, Charlie's joke. My brother bought me this TV as a divorce present because he said it was cheaper than buying a Hitman. Oh, it's such a horrible thing to say. And then she dissolves into tears. So, yes, I agree. But Jodi Arias, to continue the theme with that comment, also said a comment similar to this example. She said, well, if I did this crime, I wouldn't have used, right? I would have used gloves. Very similar, if I did it, OJ style confession. Amanda Knox, either I'm a psychopath, a wolf in sheep's clothing, or I'm you. Which she means to say is, or I didn't conspire with 3 people or commit a murder with 2 other people. I didn't murder Meredith Kircher with 2 other people. But instead she says you're you because she wants, of course, she wants you to identify with her. And it seems to have worked. Detective-ism seemed to give Wendi a pass. True. She seems to really work on men. But then during the trial, Wendi's motivation changed. So if you watch the behavioral panel's take on them, and I'm not a big fan of that channel, but that episode they did on Wendi, I found pretty poor. I think they should have called it Wendi Adelson, Don't Sue Us, because they make a point, then they walk back on their point, then they make the point again, then they walk back on it again, and then they conclude with, well, I don't know much about the case. The only one is Mark Bowman, who's just like, he's like, I'm a confidence man. I mean, does he have any training in this? I don't know. He just seems like to be just sort of this like streetwise guy who kind of is pretty perceptive and seems to really know uses a lot of neurolinguistic programming. He seemed to have the best take of all of them, but the other 3 just didn't see anything. And I think Wendi has the ability to fool men in a way, maybe because she's so pretty, I don't know, that women seem to be much more keyed into her. That's what I've observed. She knew she couldn't admit in front of a jury that she had gone to the crime scene tape because the crime scene was clearly a crime scene and not a downed tree from a non-existent electrical storm. This is what a downed tree on Trescott looks like. So they include a picture of a downed tree. This is what a crime scene look, and they compare it to the crime scene. Very, very different. Wendi isn't scared to lie under oath either, because straight perjury charges are extremely rare. True. By lying about her drive onto Trescott during trial, Wendi attempted to protect her brother and protect herself, but the evidence is clear and consistent. Wendi went out of her way, drove to the crime scene, thought nothing of it, and why? Because she knew what had happened and went on with her life. Ooh, that's chilling. What is perjury anyway? Basic definition under Florida law: material matter, any subject, regardless of admissibility under rules of evidence, which could affect a course or outcome of a proceeding. Lying under oath is perjury, second-degree felony to make false statement under oath in prosecution of a capital felony. So it's basically lying about anything. Making contradictory statements is also perjury. If someone makes 2 or more statements under oath that contradict each other, again, a second-degree felony. It is not necessary to prove which, if any, of the contradictory statements is not true. That's interesting. So once you tell 2 stories under oath, you don't have to prove which one is true. It's just the fact that both can't be true simultaneously. Interesting. Wow. I can't tell you how much I'm enjoying this video. Please go and subscribe. The link is in the description to the Ghibercz channel. Link is in the description of this episode. Fantastic video. Let's recap what went. So did Wendi make contradictory statements? So in her police interview with Detective Isom, July 2014, she says, I drove onto Trescott during the first trial, so Katie's first trial, and Sigfredo Garcia's only trial connected to this case, where he's convicted. She says, I didn't drive onto Trescott. And in the second trial of Katie, I drove onto Trescott kinda. And in the third trial, she's back to what she said in the Katie's first trial, I didn't drive onto Trescott. There's all sorts of I wonder if this person who made this video isn't a native English speaker. I saw a roadblock and a police tape. The police tape was connected to the post next to Dan's home. The crime scene was lit up with action. 23 people there, I think. Wendi drove up to it, turned around, and drove away. Then used reverse psychology for misdirection. And then denied it entirely. I'm not sure if it's reverse psychology exactly. I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments if that's exactly reverse psychology. To me, it's like putting it all out in plain sight, hiding in plain sight. That's how I would describe it. Just saying it all so you just can't think, well, that person's so honest. Nobody who actually did that would actually say that. And so a lot of people have suggested that Wendi is so cutthroat and so self-involved that she would be happy to throw Charlie or Donna under the bus to save herself. And she did so by saying the joke. But I agree with this content creator, Ghibercz, with a GH, that she was more it was more a persuasive technique. Okay, so you can tell Ghibercz what you thought of their video. When you subscribe, link is in the description of this video. Great video. I think I'm going to end it here for today, but I have some super chats to go through. Thank you so much. Love is a 4-letter word. Roberta, what were the documents regarding foster care? So I've never seen them. I've never read them. But my understanding was that Ruth Markel wanted a particular foster agency to become guardians of the kids just for the time it took her to make a plane reservation, hop on the plane, get to Florida, and get them. That is my understanding of it. And thank you so much for the super chat. Bob Carp, $10. Thank you. Roberta, you're fantastic. Oh, thank you. I could listen to you for hours. Oh, that's so kind. T. Cancella, thanks for a great video. Very informative and thorough. It's not my video, if that's what you're talking about, or if you're talking about this whole episode, thank you. And thank you for the $4.99. But I just want to give credit where credit is due. The video I played about Wendi's lies about driving to the crime scene were from the Ghibercz channel. Link is in the description of this episode. Yeah, thank you so much. So I may end it here, but I may continue this party on to celebrate hitting 1 million views on YouTube. In probably about 15 minutes, it's just going to be a hangout. Going to play lots of different stuff. Some of it I had in mind. I thought was related to this case. When I return. So if you guys want to hang out, look for the link. I should be putting it up pretty soon. Have a great night, everyone. Great Sunday night. Sleep well, everyone on the East Coast. And I'll see you back here next time. Night, everyone.